Welcome back to the Through the Veil podcast. I'm Elle, and this is the podcast where we seek to demystify, develop, and celebrate our spiritual gifts all through a faith-based lens. Obviously, we don't have Camille with us today. She is on a family vacation, but we are meeting with Christina, and Christina is amazing. We have been waiting for almost a year now to bring her onto the podcast, and she has a ton of experience in a lot of different spiritual gifts and their practice. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience real quick, Christina?
Yes, I'm so excited to be here because it has been almost a year
Yes.
since I met you. And so I am Christina Jenkins. I live in the Boise area of Idaho. I am a fourth generation astrologer, and I am part of the Wise Woman world. And the Wise Woman world, we are four women that have come together through our life experiences and are now together in business and doing business in a brand new way that feels like a remembering. So I don't know how brand new it is, but it is in a way that we call the synarchy, which is not something that we've seen in humanity for I don't know how long. I've never seen it. We're figuring it out as we go.
I love this because Dana, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, she is also in the same group of women, and you guys are we're kind of like parallel, right? We're doing very similar work. We're bringing an understanding back to, particularly we seem to pocket women. I'm open to men too. To intuitive practice and understanding our spirituality and our gifts, our God-given nature of this connection that we have in a very holistic and natural way, right? And helping encourage the development and the practice of this reconnection back to this beautiful intuitive sense that we have. I love it.
Yeah, and that's really I love these parallels in our work that we do together. So coming at it, maybe with a little bit of a different lens or different life experiences, obviously, but really with this idea, like you said, of that reconnection with self and the divine,
Yeah.
that we can then live in this life in this much more flowing,
Aligned state.
intuitive,
Yes.
aligned, joyful, certainly not without its challenges, because we came into this human thing for the adventure, for
That's an easy way to put it, for the adventure.
Oh, I'm trying. I am like annoyingly optimistic. I've
It's the
been
positive
called, and
spin
I'm
for
cool.
sure. It's the PR wing. It's like the marketing on the before is like, well, it'll be an adventure.
Yeah, that's what we got told, right?
Right. It's
Or
like
for
the
sure
Chinese
what we
proverb.
thought it would be.
Right.
Um,
Well, I don't know if you can know what to expect before. It's like having children, right? They're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great. It'll be an adventure. Deal with it as it comes, right?
and I love that. That's what I love about the intuitive lifestyle, which seems like such a funny thing to say. But when I say that, it is this idea of the adventure. It's this
Yeah.
idea, and beyond an idea, it's the life of knowing that you have everything within you.
Right.
It's
Abundance.
already there. It's just a remembering and an accessing of
Right.
what's already in you to be able to handle whatever adventures life throws at us.
Right. I do love the source of alignment that we have with the flow of divine will almost, where it's like you don't have to be so concerned because you can fall back into faith. You can fall back like it's a trust fall. Trust fall
Yeah.
into like you have people and you have spirit, you have, God, the divine on your side in this flow. As long as you try your best to remain in that aligned space, it will work together for your good, right? And all of the things will.
Yep.
The
Yep.
adventures
Even if
and
it
the
doesn't
calm.
feel like it will at the moment, but when we look at every good adventure story, like there's always the part where you just about give up. And I know it's so cliche, but that's because literally millions of stories have been written about it. And it is the story of our life over and over and
Well, there's a
over.
reason that it's a trope, right? There's a reason millions of stories have been written about it. And it's because we can find something both inspiring and recognizable in that journey. Prior English major here. I'll get off my horse.
Well, and this is what I
Yeah.
love about astrology too. the astrology also helps guide us and give us this point of reference, this point of relatability with the archetypes of astrology in the storyline of our life.
Right. So let's get into that. We haven't covered astrology yet on the podcast. It's been a topic that we have been really excited to tackle. It is a topic that has some feeling, feelings behind it, connotations, we can say. But I honestly, like when people ask me about astrology, it is an ancient practice. This thing has been around, since the dawn of humanity, right? We've been tracking the stars and we implement. It's one of the oldest intuitive practices, really, and it's found in almost every single culture, some format of this. And I think people kind of look at that kind of like tarot, like, oh, it's got dark. I don't, it's a tool, right? I always tell people it's a tool, just like any other gift, any other thing, really. It really depends on your intention behind how you're using it and what you're using it for. This is a tool, gift that you have come into in your family line, right? You have like a heritage of this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm going to just share this picture. This is my great grandmother, Eleanor. And she was actually one of and granted, there weren't as many astrologers back in the early 1900s as there are now, but she was the foremost astrologer in the Western United States
That's
back in
amazing.
the early 1900s. And she lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. And, it's a gift. I actually have a reading that she gave to my grandfather. She was quite a bit older. He was an adult. He was having some health challenges. And it's beautiful to see with my knowledge of astrology and then going back and reading that she gave to my grandfather. And she family lore, we don't have proof of this, but family lore is that she actually did readings for major government and players in the Western United States. So governors of states or as states came into being. So that's family lore. I have no reason to not believe it because again, she had a unique skill set for the area and for the time. And from what I can tell with reading this reading that we have of my grandfather, she knew what she was doing.
It was pretty on
Smart
point.
woman.
How did she come into this? Like, I mean, she probably was a settler. She probably moved across the United States, I would assume, or her parents did. How did she come into it? Do you know?
So she was actually a very gifted musician, but like so many women of the time in the late 1800s, there were fewer options available. And she ended up getting married and having children. I'm going to tell you my version of the story based on what I've read about her history, because I have done a fair bit of history about it. And my father, that one of his hobbies in the past was genealogy, was family history.
Right.
So he's gathered together stories of his family line. And so as this talented, intelligent musician who had the potential to actually be a professional musician, who chose a different life, chose to get married a man who had some successful farms. So a very different life than the hub of downtown Salt Lake, where art
Hmm.
has always been a supported, like the arts are supported and have
Right.
always been supported in Salt Lake City. And she married a farmer, so different life. So I think that this bright, intelligent mind of hers found some things. Now we know that in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a resurgence
An
of
interest.
these old spiritual practices,
Right.
astrology, the tarot, all these other
Spiritualism.
called of spiritualism. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. These occult, meaning hidden, not dark. Let's be
Hmm.
very clear. Like there are connotations about the occult, but in every, like there's always the, the uh you can do whatever you want with information.
Right.
And so when you get hidden information that has been kept from or uh hidden, and then it comes to the light. You can do all sorts of things with it. And she did a great job with it. And I imagine her reading books and books and books, casting charts back then, like hand casting charts. And that's something when I teach my students, we hand cast charts. It's important, just like knowing how to count change back to someone. I've actually had two experiences in the last week where I paid with cash and they were like, I don't even know what to do with this. I'm like, it's 76 cents. How do you do that? I learned
Yeah.
math. So I just imagine her hand casting these charts and understanding, like looking at the sky and really, instead of being stuck into a computer, but not having a concept of what's happening out actually in the sky outside
Yeah.
of the computer. I love thinking of her in this way. And she's one of my guides. She shows up frequently for me.
Hmm.
As one of
Spiritually.
my, yeah.
I love that. So, just for terminology and definition, hand casting is writing down the individual planets and how they're affecting you in your life, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Making
So
the
it's
chart,
drawing the
writing and drawing the chart.
circle. It's looking at the books that are like headache inducing books.
Right.
I don't even know what they were like back then. They're headache inducing now. So,
Right. You can
and
draw it through
plotting.
interactively
Yep.
today. Today we
Plotting the
have the
point.
maps. We can draw it back in history. So I have a friend who's really good with astrology, and we went and took a girls' trip to Salem, Massachusetts, a couple of years ago. And she drove up from Richmond, and then we drove together from Pennsylvania to Salem. It was an 8-hour drive, and at least 4 of those hours, she tried to walk me through all the details and peculiarities of astrology, and I was like, "Oh, this is a lot." I'm a sharp cookie. I'm a pretty smart gal. And I was like, wow, like next level respect for somebody who can keep track of all of these things in their brain. It's not a small amount of information. So I imagine referencing books and books and volumes of material back in that day, it was an intense process. So to become really adept at a skill like that, it's an admirable task. It take it
Thank
from
you.
me, y'all. It's an admirable task.
Well, and especially when we think about a woman living in middle of nowhere, Utah, in the early 1900s.
Right.
Like that puts a whole new level of accessibility. And one of the things that I love now is, like casting your chart. That's the terminology of like pulling your chart from astro.com or astroseek, all these different options that are available to us now that's done in seconds. And it used to take
Hmm.
hours to create that map, to create what I call the map of the theater of your life, because all of those players in that theater of your life that we've mapped out on this stage have a role. And one of the other things that I love about astrology is it is endless. You can take it in so many different directions. You can go in so many rabbit holes. You're never going to stop learning. And I love hanging out with astrologers because today's the Gemini new moon when we're recording this. And Gemini loves to think, and I have a lot of Gemini energy. I actually love the acquisition of knowledge. And that in and of itself is satisfying to me. Even if I don't do anything with the knowledge, I love acquiring knowledge. And so when I hang out with astrologers, they tend to be educated people who are continuously desiring to learn more. And so, and for me, it was a remembering. For me, it was coming back to something that I already knew, but there was definitely a learning curve. And just like you mentioned your English major earlier, you know, I that's a different skill set that I don't have. And so we all have these different skill sets, and that's part of the beauty of this human experience that we get to have
Right?
together.
Intrinsic gifts. Um, the thing that's really interesting in all of the modalities about astrology, there's a lot of, overflow and cross into the way that we use these gifts in a lot of different modalities. Astrology is one of those that has had thousands of years of buildup. There's also this interesting like cross flow of intuitive interpretation and having kind of that the alignment of that spirit to guide through the implementation of this knowledge into the everyday practice of life. It is really, really interesting. Um, if you could give us a breakdown of the explanation of what is astrology and why is it important? How does it maybe influence our lives? I think most people, maybe your layperson, is like, you can look up your zodiac or something on Google and be like, what is my outcome for today? Like, look for some unassuming man who may pass you a flower and give you a romantic, it's like, it's kind of a strange, kitschy kind of thing. What really is astrology and why does it matter today?
Such a brilliant question. Thank you. It is the study of the movement of the planets in particular, that and how they influence the collective and us individually. And so through these years of study, when they noticed that Venus was in this particular part in the sky, there were some commonalities, some patterns that would emerge. But let's take it out bigger. Venus moves around pretty quick. Let's take it out to Saturn, who is known as the timekeeper of the zodiac. Okay. Saturn takes 30 years to go through. So when Saturn clicked through pretty slowly in this one part of the sky, there were patterns that would happen. And those on this macro level could really be looked at. And then as we've discovered additional planets, Saturn was the farthest out for a long time. So astrology only went through Saturn. But now we see on these Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, some of the asteroids, we can see how they have impacted collectively and as individuals. And so in the most basic form, it is the study of the movement of the planets and how they impact us.
So I will be frank here. For a really long time, astrology, as I was coming into this world of like intuition, intuitive gifts, and modalities, astrology is always one of those that I put on my back shelf. I was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." But as like I had a friend kind of explain it to me, um, astrology is like your astrological chart is the encapsulation of all of the energy in the universe at the moment of your birth, right? So you are the condensation of all of that energy being expressed in the moment of your birth at the exact time in the exact placement on the world, our globe. And when I think about that, like I'm always very interested in breaking things down in very practical physical terms. I mean, science is just the application of all these things in a way that maybe we don't have an explanation for yet in the intuitive world. But when you think about the scale of the universe and the scale of these planets, it's almost inconceivable the size, right? I mean, if we think about just the energy released from the sun, and the sun is how many millions, billions, I don't know, of miles from the Earth, and how it affects every part of our planet, from like it interacting with the ionosphere around the Earth to like sunburning our skin here, billions of miles away, right? And then you think of the scale, the massive scale of a planet the size of Jupiter. How can it not? I mean, the gravity of Jupiter influences Earth. The gravity. And this is just one metric of a range of a force that we can measure. But there are lots of other forces that we can't necessarily be aware of or measure. Everything from electromagnetic fields all the way to other forms of energy. It's all just a scale, right? We know a couple of these things in the scale: light, like electricity, electromagnetism, and magnetism, right? Gravity. But there are lots of other things in the universe probably that we don't quite understand. And so wrapping my brain around that and the fact that we interact in a universal space with all these celestial bodies, huge, huge, like space taking, literally bodies in this universe that we're all kind of moving through together. Why would they not influence us in some way? Like why would they not? It really makes rational sense when you think about it in that way. Like of course, some aspect of them, even the moon influences the tides on the planet, right? Even the moon. So why would some of these things not impact the life that we all lead? I can see it. I can totally see it.
Thank you. And I just Jupiter's doing a big movement here in just a couple of weeks. Jupiter will be moving into the sign of Gemini. And Jupiter is known as the protector. Like there's a lot of other things that Jupiter represents. And as I was preparing my own stuff for my content for Jupiter moving into the sign, moving out of Gemini into the sign of Cancer, is what the big movement is. Jupiter's been in Gemini for the last year. Moving into the sign of Cancer. So I'm doing just a little bit of research. I don't know why I didn't know this before, because astronomy was actually one of my favorite subjects when I was in high school, and what I took my like science credits I needed to in college. Jupiter protects us. Actually, its mass protects us from asteroid impact, too much electromagnetic radiation, like all of these, just simply because of the mass
Yeah,
of
it's
Jupiter,
huge.
it actually protects us here on little old Earth, a few million miles away from each other. Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing? Like, that is amazing. And in a ratio in our bodies, when we look like that, like solar system is super macro. When we come into micro, racially, like RATIEO, ratio, the distance from Pluto to Earth is actually smaller than some of the distance within our own microcosm of
Yeah.
our body.
There is,
That's mind-blowing stuff.
it's really interesting because we often will think of things in terms of scale, right? And we often, because of the way we perceive space and distance, we're looking at things that are bigger than ourselves quite often. But just like the comprehension of God is just mind blowing. It's like, oh, he takes the macro scale of the entire universe, solar systems, beyond reach of telescopes from where we are. And then also like all the way down into the microbiology of our cells, right? And the atoms within our body. I'm like, this is too much. Um, that's just crazy. So I just want to throw out for reference right here. I just looked it up. Um, so Jupiter compared to Earth, it has a volume of over 1,300 the times of Earth. So like it's crazy. If you want to look at the scale, Mark Rober has a really brilliant video where he like visualizes the scale of the universe using modern objects in a football field. So he like Earth is like the size of like a grape or something like that. And Jupiter is like 3 football fields away and it's the size of like a volleyball or something.
I have seen that video. That would be a
It's
great
great.
thing. It's and then when we think about that again, like you were saying, we have this massive, from our perspective looking out. And then if we went in, because I think is it in his video or in another video, they do another thing where it goes in to like an atom, and the distance between electrons is bigger than the distance from Sun to Pluto, or like
And
on a
yeah,
ratio.
and yet that creates our entire biosphere, right? Like our whole body. It's crazy.
I just
Well,
want to, like,
obviously,
can we take a minute to just thank the divine for the intelligence?
yeah,
The intelligence is, it just brings such a deep sense of joy and gratitude that there is an intelligence that really has got this all, like,
figured out.
from the atom, which is just, one of the smallest things we know about, and all the parts of it, to solar systems and galaxies and the
Yeah,
ever expanding universe.
it can't be an accident, right? I'm all about intelligent design, obviously, but to me that speaks of volumes about this can't possibly organized matter to this extent and degree can't possibly be an accident. So obviously, as this affects human beings practically today, I think it's my belief that God works by natural means. And I think that he organizes things according to natural laws and how they happen. And I think I don't see a reason why God and science cannot be aligned in the same way. We're just not up to his speed, right? It's just kind
I
of above our
agree. Why
degree
can't
level.
they play nice together?
I
And
think
I'll
that they
tell you
can.
why. Do you know how astrology started?
Tell us the history.
Okay. So astronomy and astrology used to be the same thing, and it was actually called astrology. And then when the church and Galileo or Copernicus, one of those guys, like the smart guys from back in the, a few
One of the
centuries ago,
forefathers, yeah.
yeah, was really studying the physical objects. So this had gone because we had telescopes and other means of seeing out a little bit farther and then putting a little bit more science to it. So they were both. And so now they had a physical object. They could see Jupiter as more than a star. I don't know what their telescopes were like, but they could start to see that this was different. And the church was like, okay, we're taking care of all the unseen, all the, they didn't use the word energy, probably. I don't know what they said.
Metaphysical, we can say metaphysical.
Yeah, exactly. So they were going to take care of everything that was unseen, and then science could take care of everything that was seen. So this science of astrology, astronomy broke apart, and science took astronomy, the study of the physical objects, and the church took over the spiritual aspects of this study of the stars. And then, of course, just that went underground because there was one authority at the time of anything spiritual, and the consequences were rather dire if you did other things that didn't quite go along with that. And so
Yeah.
that's how it broke up. It was actually only a few centuries ago that this happened, after thousands of years of the study of the physical bodies as well as the spiritual aspects or energetic aspects of these planetary bodies, separated from each other.
Um, I don't see how this could be like contrary to, figure out the way to phrase this. If God works by natural means, if these things are all bigger laws that govern a whole universe that we are existing and beginning to understand a part of, then it can, I guess it could only be a benefit to us to actually understand the workings of God as well. Like it is a small insight that is, I guess, allowable, that is operable, that we can begin to study about how like the greater workings of these things energetically are flowing and are functioning. I don't see how astrology and faith cannot go together either. I feel like they could be something that could be beautifully co-productive.
Can I share an experience that
Yes,
is
please.
typical? This is typical of having a reading with me and many astrologers. So this isn't like unique to Christina Jenkins. This is just something I happen to experience a lot, and I know other people who do. So I was in Ecuador for 5 weeks and working a lot with farmers on the cacao farms. And one night we were all together, and my friend who was there said, Christina, do you want to like do some astrology readings with a couple of, so when these are like close to the earth, wake up and work hard people. These are not my ideal
Salt of the
clients, so
earth
to
types.
speak.
Yeah. Practical.
So we sat down
Sensible.
together. Yeah. Right. So we sat down together and I just did quick readings. And when I say quick, I spent about 15 minutes just talking. And um I did a reading for an 11-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 25-year-old, and then a 48-year-old. All
Wow.
men, and they were into it. And the 48-year-old man started crying because for the first time in his life he felt seen, like not as this great farmer who goes out and has this great way with the plants, but seen as a person,
Hmm.
understood as somebody who was very connected to his ancestors. Why did he have this propensity to be with the earth? Why did he keep finding cool objects that meant a lot to him, that spoke to him from this spiritual way? God is going to speak to us in a way that we will understand. The
Yeah.
loving God that I believe in is going to speak to us through astrology, if that's the way that we'll understand, through nature, if that's the way we'll understand, through a religious practice, if that's the way that we will understand. And this man felt seen and heard. That sounds like the work of God to me.
Hmm. I think anytime we feel something building, anytime we feel something growing or good, I think it obviously is the trademark of God. Because that's his purpose. He's a creator, right? It is to create, it's to build, it's to bring life to something. And I think the interesting purpose of man, we're constantly in this tug of war between trying to understand that micro and macro, right? Ourselves on this deep inner level. Who are we? What is our purpose? Why are we here? What is this design that we have inside of ourselves and why does it matter? And then looking out into the world on the macro scale and being like, how do I apply? What can I do? Why is this the way it is and how do I fit into it, right? And I think astrology is a really beautiful synthesis of like science and intuitive practice that brings these things together and helps you see in a individual and collective sense of how you matter individually as a person and collectively to bring some good to the world around you, right? In a really beautiful way. And I tell all of my clients and stuff like that with any modality, go with your intuition first. All these things are going to dictate and tell you something, but go with how it makes you feel. How does it hit you? What is your intuition about it? And that should be your first, like that should be your first thing to go back to. And then secondary, what someone else is interpreting and how they feel about the interpretation of it.
I I just agree 100% with that. And I personally, as an astrologer, I feel like I am doing God's work because people every single day, through me looking at their chart and talking to them about themselves, they remember more of who they are. It rings true to them. And when someone else says, hey, I see this gift in you, and maybe it's not something that they're doing anything with it, but they know,
Hmm.
they remember, because they leave a reading with me feeling more capable, more confident, and more guided in bringing good into this world.
Exactly. And I think that is one of the beneficial things. I think you can see, does it turn you inward or does it turn you outward with these kinds of modalities? If it leaves you in a place where you are going to focus on yourself and just be like, I'm so great, self-aggrandizing. Um, and it's not necessarily building, but when it can give you some aspect of truth about yourself in a way that can be constructive to those around you, where you can learn and be confident and feel overfull with the blessings and the capabilities and the beautiful uniqueness of who you are, the gifts of this self-expression of everything that has been given to you divinely. And then you can go share that in the way that you are uniquely capable of sharing it. And understand why and how this will benefit other people. That's a beautiful way to build the world, right? It's a beautiful way to be free and liberated to go build the world in a way that's unique to you. And I don't see that if it's encouraging you to do good and be good at it and express good to the world in that way, I don't see that as being anything negative. We need that. We need good.
Need that. And the beautiful thing about the time that we live in right now is our access to choice about what resonates and what doesn't resonate has never been wider. Like the work that you do, the work that I do, the work that many of my clients do. When we have people working in their divine design, when we have people that feel confident in what they're offering to the world, we create this beautiful circulation of
Right.
love, of energy, of prosperity, all the things in this way that doesn't leave you burned out, so that you can't, and a way that has self-awareness that's like, oh, I need to rest now. And the purpose of the rest is so that I can show up again
Right.
and keep shining bright, but also that self-compassion where, oh, I'm sick. So I'm going to honor myself because I can't show up. So it just, and then I can show up. It just,
Right. It's
I love
balance.
this, and I love the accessibility to different modalities that we have, that we can pick and choose.
Right. I think there's kind of like an awakening of God in all things. Like really there is good in many, many places that we can find. And he shows up in unexpected ways. Not to bring it to scripture, but um, there's a reason that scripture states that to some is given one gift and to some is given another. We're not given all the gifts to each individual person because then why would we need each other? And the point is interconnectivity. The point is that we have to grow together, right? No man is an island. We weren't designed to be. We're designed to need that community and to grow together in that way. And so I do love that it's like a celebration of individuality in unity. And I love that.
Absolutely. So we're going back to astrology, Pluto in Aquarius. There was a lot of talk about that. So like Google it. There's lots. Pluto in Aquarius is about sovereignty of self in the oneness and unity of the collective.
Oh. Is that where
That's
we
what
are
we're
right now? Is Pluto in Aquarius right now?
Yep. Yep.
And here we are having this conversation.
And Pluto will be in Aquarius until 2044. So we've got a
Wow.
long journey, because Pluto moves just a little bit slow. But Pluto, if you wonder, Pluto is so far out there, like how in the world is that impacting Earth? It is. And I've done lots of content about that. So if you're curious about that, go ahead and reach out to me and I'll show you where my content, because Pluto's kind of a big deal to me. Just where it shows up in my own personal chart. And I've done a lot of study about Pluto. So that sovereignty of self in the unity of the collective.
How interesting that that shows up right now in this time where we are as a globe, right? Where we are so interconnected so quickly. And we are all the development of AI and all kinds of crazy stuff happening. I mean, and then we also have to kind of discuss the further, context of what it means to be a human being and what our purpose is. There's a lot of chatter going on about that right now. And very interesting that it is kind of reflected in that way. Interesting or not interesting. I mean, if you're an astrologer, you're probably like, I knew all along. But the rest of us are like, wow, the alignment.
And that's, I'm telling you, I love how accessible astrology is. I love that people can use AI, work with AI to discover more about their astrology. I've often been asked, are you afraid you're going to become obsolete as an astrologer? Because like there's all these apps, there's the AI, there's all
Yeah,
this stuff. And the answer is no, absolutely. I am not. And that is because the human connection that we experience together is something that I think makes us human. So this chatter about what is it to be human, I think one of the things that it is to be human is to be able to connect with another human
yeah.
energetically and physically.
And we
And
crave that. We crave that connection. We need that connection as human beings.
yes, absolutely. So yeah, there's so much. It's just so fun. Okay, Elle, do you want me to do a demonstration for you?
Yes, would you please show us what it feels like, what it looks like to have your chart read by an astrologer? That'd
Yes.
be
Okay.
awesome. Thank you.
I would love to. I'm going to share my screen here. And this is your chart, Elle. And so I want to just talk a little bit about, um, just for education purposes. So this is the screenshot of the sky at the moment of your birth. Now, keep in mind, this does not show everything. And if you are an astrologer or you've done astrological readings, like you've had your chart read, there are things on here that are unusual. I do look at the goddess asteroids. So there are some signs on here that you may not understand. Totally fine. We're actually not going to talk about those. This is just what I have coming up. But think of this as the theater of your life, the stage of your life. And then each of these planets here, they're like the actors. So the sun, everybody has a sun in their chart. Now, Elle's sun happens to be playing the role of Sagittarius. My sun happens to be playing the role of Cancer. And so the sun is the sun, just like Johnny Depp is Johnny Depp. But when Johnny Depp is Jack Sparrow, that is different than Johnny Depp. Is that
Right.
example making sense? So
Yeah.
each of these actors has a role that it's playing. Then the sign, the zodiac sign, so Sagittarius, Capricorn, Pisces, those are the roles that it can be playing. So this is pretty basic information. This next bit of information is actually one of the biggest differentiators in individual charts, because somebody else, Elle, who was born at the same time in a different place, is going to have a slightly different chart, not based on the planets. The sun was at 6 degrees Sagittarius the day you were born. And everybody who was born that day, now the minute might be different, but it's these pie slices that you see. You see 1, these numbers going around all the way to 12. These are the astrological houses. And these are the stage directions, or the area of your life where the action is taking place on the stage. And everything that we know about gets put into one of these buckets, one of these 12 categories or directions, if you will. And so, for example, this first house is the self, your identity, your ego, your body. The 8th house, one of my favorite houses, is the house nobody wants to talk about. It is death, taxes, sex, all. So if it's a taboo subject, it goes in the 8th house. It's
8.
also about transformation. It's about other people's money. So there's a lot of things. So it might seem yeah, to know all the meanings of every single house, everything that's in that bucket, there are general themes to it. And there are whole books written about this. So if there's something random.
Where the
So
complexity comes in. It gets
correct.
really deep.
Or the intuition.
Right.
The intuition also, for example, let's just go back to the 8th house. Well, this is other people's money. So this is investments and other things. But then there's also the 2nd house, which is a money house, and the 10th house, which can be a money house. So it's like, okay, and this particular, if you're asking me a money question, there is the science, like the studied, hey, we've seen this pattern, whatever, but it doesn't overrule intuition. The
Right.
intuition of you, who I'm reading for, or the intuition of me as the reader.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about, oh, and then one other thing, all this stuff in the middle, all this beautiful sacred geometry.
Geometry.
Yep. It is the dialogue. It's how the planets are talking to each other. And I have it on a setting because of a reading that I just did where I actually have more showing up than usual on here. And so sometimes you might see it with less. There happens to be a lot right now on here. And
It's
that
okay.
is,
I've got a lot going on. So,
you do. And look at how beautiful it is. Like, look at all the dimensions of shapes. And if you kind of move your eyes, it actually, you could see this as spherical. And
yeah.
that shape being like a 3-dimensional platonic solid sort of shape, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's super fun. So your big 3, Elle, are your Sagittarius sun. And your Sagittarius sun is in the 10th house of career, of purpose, of the way that you are most seen in the world. And it's right next to Mercury. See how this is at 4 and this is at 6? They're
Hmm.
right next to each other here. And so the way that you communicate, podcast, teaching classes, etc., with your Sagittarius sun, which is about, no wonder you like the word adventure so much. Sagittarius loves adventure. Sagittarius loves exploring beliefs.
Yes.
Sagittarius rules beliefs, and this could be religious beliefs as well as other types of belief systems. Interestingly, Sagittarius also rules podcasting, publication, like the really, you know, out in the world kind of communication.
Hmm.
And it's in your 10th house of career. And so continuing to explore these ways that you're putting this information out in the world, and you as the face, as the spokesperson for this information, this discussion about beliefs, about finding the truth, and about bringing things together in this intellectual way. Sagittarius is very intellectual.
I mean, that's me.
So beautiful.
Well, we've had so many interesting things we've discussed today, and we have a lot more. So stay tuned next time for the next episode if you're curious about what this is and what it looks like. She's going to give us a demo.